I'm here with mayoral candidate Brandon Bay. And Brandon, I've got some questions for you today.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
Well, happy to have you. Ottawa has a number of world-class research facilities, a number of museums with impressive collections within its borders. Do you have any concern that a unique artifact or a batch of chemicals could be mishandled, leading to a zombie apocalypse?
Well, Joel, like you mentioned, there's a number of locations where something like that could happen. The Museum of Nature, for example, has a lot of ancient DNA specimens going on in their collection, and the Museum of History works with some old artifacts too. We've got the Central Experimental Farm that's doing, weird agricultural research. Anything could happen there. And the Ottawa Hospital, all of our universities, they have their own biolabs, along with a few private industry scientists in town. But I think the most likely place where we'd ever see this sort of zombie apocalypse scenario play out would be Ottawa. Its location downtown with the high density neighborhoods nearby. It's, high group of scientists, especially student scientists, new to the equipment and the research, maybe a little less careful than the seasoned veteran. And I think they have 3 bioresearch labs on campus, so there's a large number of them. I think it's the most likely place where an outbreak would be difficult to contain. And actually, it's got a little bit of history with such things too. I was part of the group, years ago in my university days that introduced the campus to the global humans versus zombies game, where we would, mock out a zombie apocalypse scenario on campus with tag and Nerf guns, and just as a fun competitive game with prizes for the winner. So I think, there would be a fun, beautiful irony in that, were it to be the epicenter of the real
The
deal.
zombie
Yeah.
apocalypse. So I have to ask then, since you have experience with this particular institution, and not just like as an alumnus, but as a participant in this activity, if there was a zombie apocalypse, would you be inclined towards defense, or would you promote, giving in and saying, let's live with the zombies, or let's give in to the zombies? It's inevitable. What would your response be?
I think my initial response would be one of defense. I think Ottawa's broad and flat geography, low density, along with having Canada's military leadership here in the city, would make us particularly well suited to defending the city. But, should things start to go out of control, if it seemed like the zombies were here to stay, then I think, much like my mayoral campaign has been running on a platform of working together with all the various departments and levels of government and the city of Gatineau and everyone else to make this a wonderful place to live and work. I think we might want to do the same with the zombies if it seemed like we were unable to contain the outbreak. But I also think that we might start to, regret that we didn't listen to Greg Guevara and build the Ottawa Wall. It might have kept this contained a little better.
Fair enough. You mentioned some of the advantages that Ottawa has in terms of topography, in terms of
Hmm.
military support. Um, Thinking specifically about your fair city, what are some of the unique challenges that Ottawa would face in the wake of a zombie apocalypse?
I think the best place to start there would be to talk about Ottawa's, famous, maybe infamous bureaucracy. I think the competing levels of government and various departments that have a tendency to be slow to act to changes and surprises, and that might hurt our ability to respond to such a threat, taking too long and suddenly we can't deal with the problem anymore. Ottawa's also got a bit of a marketing and communication problem. We might not be able to effectively inform all the residents until they've already encountered the zombies, and that would definitely hold us back in terms of, being able to handle the threat and, recommend that people flee or something, or shelter in place, whatever the directive is. We have a hard time communicating that out. And to their credit, Ottawa Public Health got a lot better about this in the pandemic, and I think, we can learn from that and be better this time around. But it's something we struggle with on a regular basis. I also think the fact that a lot of communities, especially in the newer suburbs we've been building, lack amenities. They're incomplete, so there's no hardware store for people to quickly run and get something to defend themselves or anything like that. And Ottawa's got a lot of places to hide, all the parks and the waterways and the forests, the greenbelt that we treasure so much. It would be difficult to search when trying to eliminate a threat like this.
So obviously the famous bureaucracy gets in the way of this, but what steps do you think Ottawa as a municipality, Ottawa as a collection of human beings, what steps do you think Ottawa can take to prepare for a potential zombie threat?
I think actually my mayoral platform is recommending a lot of the things that would help with this. You know, by happy coincidence, I think if we move faster to adapt to the change that we need in this post-pandemic world today, that would go a long way towards dealing with any threats like this that come up. If we had a centralized communications portal that was effective and that people knew to go and check, you know, that could get messaging out really quickly to the community, and that would go a long way. If we built better 15-minute neighborhoods, as the city calls them, you know, complete communities, put the amenities in place that people need to get supplies, and if we invest in more local businesses, like in this particular case, maybe some research facilities, maybe Ottawa could be a leader in vaccine development or something, maybe find a cure. Although, you know, a bit of a double-edged sword there, because then maybe that lab is the one to release the zombie threat.
That's a fair point. A
Yeah.
fair point. Um, and this one I think is a question that is not only a reflection of a potential future threat, but comments on where we've been as a society. Are you at all concerned about a potential zombie apocalypse creating further divisions within our communities?
You know, I think it's possible, and I think we've had a lot of division in our society lately. It's an unfortunate place to be. But I honestly think, in a strange way, it might bring us all closer together to have this, you know, unifying threat that unites us rather than, I mean, I don't think you'd see too many people being pro zombie for very long.
Fair enough. Just as an aside, there was oh my goodness, what's his name? Max Brooks, who wrote World War Z,
Hmm.
and is Mel Brooks' son.
Oh, I didn't
Uh,
realize that.
yeah, he is, which is why the audiobook for World War Z is just stacked with talent. Um, he did a comic anthology um, with Alan Moore. I don't know how much you're into comics, but he had this Civil War era story that he told where America was being attacked by giant insects. And he said it at
Interesting.
that time. He said it at that time specifically because the technology was on its way, but not there yet.
Right.
So the repeating rifle, naval ships like submarines, all these things were almost there,
Okay.
but not quite. And so humanity was kind of on the brink. And he talked about how the concerns of the Civil War weren't present. And specifically, he used a phrase on a podcast I listened to where he talked about the situation he created. Americans didn't have the luxury of prejudice. And that phrase has stuck in my brain for years. So just wanted
Yeah.
to throw that out. Um,
I think we'd find ourselves in a similar situation in this kind of environment.
I think I hope
Yeah.
so. I hope so.
Was that wacky enough for you, Greg?